Hello, Amanda here, and as you saw, this is 30 Days of Christy's Beautiful Life 31 exclusive sketches for October 2022. I have gotten off track for my days and sketches, so this sketch is from Allison Davis for Day25, and I pulled these photos. It's of my great-grandmother and great-grandfather with their daughter, my grandmother, and I had typed up some journaling that my aunt and my mom have shared with me about their family, and then I realized that I oriented it so that it really wouldn't work with my photos. So here I went off camera, and now it is now 5 lines for at the bottom, just like Allison's sketch has. And I'm going through my scraps. I love Allison Davis's sketches because she's very mindful about being able to do scrapbooking with small pieces of paper. It turns out that I don't use that, but you could. And you might be seeing a lot of this mist cardstock, which is this warm gray blue color in my upcoming layouts, because I knew that I needed some and I love the color, and I ended up ordering it 3 times. So 72 sheets of mist cardstock are now a part of my stash, so I will be using those. But thankfully I have this heritage album that I'm going to do with the cherished papers, from Close to My Heart, and it's just going to be a great addition. The two-tone, the front and back, I really like that. So as you can see, I'm kind of just pulling my scraps, and I didn't necessarily want to do all the florals that are in this sketch, and my photos are the same size, so I'm going to try to space them on the layout to give them the same kind of interest that Allison has on hers. The Harbor cardstock is not a color that's listed with the Cherish papers, but I think it works. So off camera you can see that I cut the Heading to Clarksburg, my large title, out. But I wanted to show you this technique of mirror stamping, because one of the things that my aunt shared is that she remembers spending lots of time in the car going back and forth from Vienna to Clarksburg, West Virginia. And so I wanted to show the car going both directions. So here I'm doing it just as the stamp would normally do that. I'm using archival black ink or intense black ink, because I want to color these in with markers. And I was trying to see if you could see what this is. It's a thick piece of plastic, kind of like a page protector. It's actually a business card pocket that I cut apart. And I inked up my stamp, and so now I am stamping it onto this plastic sheet because the ink will stay on top of it. It will not penetrate into the plastic. And using that same piece of paper that I did the other 2 car stamps on, you can see here now I have a car that is facing to the right and then 2 that are facing to the left. So the nice thing is that you just wipe that off. I'm going to clean up my space and get started. So I pulled out a bunch of gold embellishment, sequins, dots, all of that, because I thought that's what I would use for my page. I don't. I was talking with Kim Ferguson, and if you haven't checked out her channel, you should. She does amazing paper piecing. But I showed her what I was doing, and she's like, oh, you don't need gold, you need to do red to bring out the color in the car. And she was absolutely correct. You will see that at the end. So I pulled off camera, I created some flowers with the 3D flower thin cut. I made some leaves from both the layered leaves and the layered flowers thin cut. I did my title. Those are 2 cardstock thick, because Jessica Topinski, also a friend, you should check her out. She's the Paper Heart on YouTube. She showed this trick where you go ahead and glue together 2 layers of cardstock before you cut them out, and then you get a little bit thicker lettering, and they're easier to handle. So I do have my little strips of painter's tape that are holding my letters together so that I can kind of dry fit. I decided instead of using all the different sizes of scraps from the Cherish paper, I was just going to use a 4-inch section of the striped paper that's included in the kit. And it's one of those that I liked the variation, and I thought it would work great with this sketch. So it had a white edge. It's funny, normally I don't cut these off, but it was such a crisp line, I felt confident that I could cut it straight, and I didn't, but thankfully you're not going to see it. So next time I will probably get my cutter out to cut that, because I do not do well, apparently. And I don't know why. If you look at the sketch, all of the banner ends are the same length. And so it should have worked, but for some reason I wasn't feeling it. So I end up clipping off some of the different lengths and making the banner ends at different points. And I think that's just something that you as a creator or an artist, you have to decide for yourself what works for you and what doesn't. And this is what worked for me on this day. I think if I were to have these same components on a different day, I would have a completely different layout. I don't know if that's true for you or not, but I know that's true for me. And even I did a dry fitting of my embellishments later on, you'll see that. And when I glued them down, they ended up getting shifted because of where the title ended up and where the photos ended up. And so it's just, you kind of just have to go with it. And because the photos overlap here enough to cover both edges in one place of this, these pattern papers in the background, and again, that's something that Allison Davis is really good at, I'm able to play with the heights. I didn't do banner ends on the top. I think because I struggled with them so much on the bottom, I decided that having it straight across the top worked for me. I didn't get my sewing machine out to add stitching. I'm moving into my kitchen cabinets now, so it's one of those things. I was trying to do some layouts and do some work in the kitchen, so I was on my feet for a couple hours. Then I come in and play in my studio for a little bit, a couple hours, and then go back to work again. So I just try to mix that work and play in my house, because for me, a day that I get to play with paper is definitely a play day. I'm loving how these cards are, and it matches with the journaling. Like I said, my aunt shared that for her, she just remembers being in the car going to Clarksburg a lot, and that her mom, who was a registered nurse and did private duty nursing, she worked 365 days a year, so she would get up and be at work by 7 a.m. and then on her way home would pick up some groceries, and it always had to be something that was relatively quick because they fixed it that night and then sat down to a family dinner. There were times that they would jump in the car and go to Clarksburg. It sounds like my great-grandparents would purchase crates of food, or full, I can't think of the right word, kind of like a full package of food, in these boxes. And so my grandparents and my aunt and my mom would head over to Clarksburg to help bring those from the car through this side alley and into their basement. So this is the tip that Kim said, is that I needed some red gems, and she was absolutely right. And just like gold, red has many, many different shades. So I was thrilled to find these darker shade gems in my stash. And I'm just kind of peppering them around my embellishment clusters. I've kept with the theme of 3 clusters, but my gems are kind of cascaded throughout the page, and I'm liking that feel. I'm trying to decide where I want to put this last one, if I really want to use this last one. And I love how this page is coming together. It's one more story that never would have been known by me or my kids, and now it's recorded. It's going to go into an album that we can look back on and kind of see some of our heritage and where we come from. If you want to connect with me on social media, this is how you can do it. If you don't want to miss any of my future videos, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. I do have playlists so that you can see, if you just want to kind of watch where I'm at in my heritage albums, you can check those out. But be sure to check out the description for everybody doing the 30 days of sketches. Blessings.